Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today, and do I have an upload for you? Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. With that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? So a couple of weeks ago, a subscriber reached out, an older gentleman from Canada. He wanted to share some information that he has been sitting on for quite some time. I did okay everything that I spoke about last upload with him prior to sharing, but he felt that I may have shared too much about him, even though there was not a lot said about him. We will only refer to him as Gus from now on. His past in history with Renee Lavasseur makes no difference. But he had shared with me that there is this island that is in northern Quebec, that it's this circular kind of, it's called the Eye of Quebec or the Eye of Canada. And it's just this circular island in the northern part of Canada. That there is a deep underground military base on that island. He states that it is being protected by United States and Canadian military using chipped Dogmen. Now, we talked a little bit about some of that last time, and he shared a little more with me yet today in regards to all of that. But what he said, first and foremost, for all of us to understand the importance and how these alien agenda race, these draconian, gray, all of them think, and how our one world government thinks, and why this piece of land is so important. He said, look into it, share this, and then share what I'm going to share with you, with your audience. So once I looked into it more, I immediately saw the importance and why the New World Order or the New World Government, one world government, however you want to, whatever you want to call it, the Bilderberg, whoever, chose this location for its certain importance. Let's get into it. You guys are going to get blown away. I was blown away just reading this. And it really opened my eyes to how diabolical the government is. Yes, it's funded by the Canadian and United States government, but they're just puppets for the one world government. So when I contacted him back, he knew exactly he knew that my eyes were more open than ever at this point. Once I read up on the area and saw the significance of why this area is important, and it may be more important than any other area known to have these installations. You will see why. Your eyes will be open. He was laughing because he could tell by my voice when I called him back. He said, "Now you see." So this is what or why this area was so important. Renee Levasseur Island is a large island in the center of Lake Manicouagan in Quebec, Canada. Its highest peak is Mount Babel at 952 meters or 3,123 feet. 333. Which is contained in the Louis Babel Ecological Reserve, or Louis Babel Ecological Reserve, with a total area of 2,020 kilometers and a diameter of 50.7 kilometers. The island is several times larger in area than the annular lake in which it is situated. Renee Levasseur Island is the world's second largest lake island. The largest is Manitoulin Island in Lake Huron. The geological structure was formed by the impact of an asteroid 214 million years ago. The asteroid is believed to have been about 5 kilometers in diameter and would have hit the Earth at the speed of 17 kilometers per second, the fifth most powerful known impact that the Earth has seen. The impact of the asteroid formed a crater roughly 100 kilometers in diameter, the center of which forms the island known today. It became an artificial island when the Manicouagan Reservoir was flooded in 1970, merging two crescent-shaped lakes. Mochelagan Lake on the western side and Manicouagan Lake on the eastern side. So the Manicouagan Reservoir is an annular lake, which, if you're wondering what an annular lake is a lake formed, it's an impact lake. An annular lake in central Quebec, Canada, covering the area of 1,942 kilometers or 750 square feet. The lake island in its center is known as Renee Levasseur Island. Its highest point, Mount Babel. The structure was created 214 million years ago in the late Triassic by the impact of a meteorite 5 kilometers in diameter. The lake and island are clearly seen from space and are sometimes called the Eye of Quebec. The lake has a volume of 137.9 kilometers or 33.1 cubic miles. One of the largest impact crater lakes is Lake Manicouagan in Canada. The crater is a multiple ring structure at about 100 kilometers across with 70 kilometers in diameter in a ring. Its most prominent feature, it contains a 70 kilometer diameter annular lake surrounded by an inner island plateau, Renee Levasseur Island. It is the Earth's sixth largest confirmed impact crater, according to rim diameter. Mount Babel is the highest peak in Renee Levasseur Island at 952 meters or 3,123 feet above sea level, which is 590 meters or 1,936 feet above the Manicouagan Reservoir level. It lies within the D.U.M.B Ecological Reserve in Canada. Mount Babel is the central peak of the Manicouagan impact structure and was formed by a rebound of the crust after the impact of a meteorite 210 million years ago. The mountain and reservoir are a particular interest to geologists due to the shock metamorphosis it endured. D.U.M.B Ecological Reserve is an ecological reserve on Renee Levasseur Island in Quebec, Canada, with the area of 23,540 hectares, which makes it by far the largest of the entire Quebec network. The D.U.M.B Ecological Reserve occupies Mount Babel in the northern part of Renee Levasseur Island in the Manicouagan Reservoir. It is located in an uncategorized territory of the regional county municipality of Manicouagan. This ecological reserve protects boreal, montane, and alpine ecosystems in the Tolstok River ecological region, domain of black spruce fir, moss, forest, and that of the Lac Mercier Summit, domain of the black spruce fir forest. It also protects a site of exceptional geological interest, since it is one of 5 Quebec sites characterized by a shock metamorphosis structure. The relief of the Renee Levasseur is hilly. Its central part is surmounted by Mount Babel, mountainous terrain, very rugged. Altitude varies from 350 to 940 meters. This island has long been an interest of geologists because of its shock metamorphosis structure. Its origin is linked to an impact of celestial body, which dates back to 214 million years ago. The meteorite impact formed a crater, the largest of most complex in the Canada. Mount Babel and a strip of land averaging 6 kilometers in width in the center of the island are the 2 main areas of shock metamorphosis and resulted from a rebound of the crater center. Anthracite, quartz, feldspar constitute the principal rocks. Mount Babel is further characterized by a zeolite deposit, a semi-precious stone. This bedrock has been covered by general thick tills. So that is the history of the Renee Levasseur Island, the surrounded Manicouagan Lake, and right in the middle is Mount Babel. So on to after I read that, I called him back, and he proceeded to laugh and say, now you see the importance of that area, that not only does the government want to control, but the alien race that may have been here for X amount of years, more so than we even imagine. I did say, well, are you saying that it was not a meteorite that crashed? And he said, well, I don't know that, but that's a great question. We don't know. But underneath Renee Levasseur Island is this deep underground military base that is seldom talked about for one reason and one reason alone. It's meant to be a secret. It's supposed to be secret. Gus then informed me that the whole island is not guarded by dogmen. There are dogmen on the island that protect the entrance to this deep underground military base. They are chipped. Back when he believes the chipping, when the United States started chipping these creatures, and they did, like Victor said, they did try to chip Bigfoot, but that didn't work. He pretty much said exactly what Victor said. They died. They didn't want to be in captivity and died. Some even killed themselves, he stated. But the dogman was more suitable for it. And he said, quite possibly because they are a direct descendant or a crossbred with what the Sumerians talked about, these dog-headed aliens. So it made them a perfect candidate, a perfect guinea pig. What they're doing in these bases is, along with Dulce, we already know because of Phil Snyder, Bill Cooper, Tom Castiello, and many more heroes have told us that the abduction of women, children, and seldom men, they are experimented on. The government asked permission for certain things, or the aliens, asked. There was a deal made. There was no asking by the aliens. The aliens said, we'll give you this tidbit of information. We're going to take your people. And there's really nothing you can do about it because we'll wipe you all out. They are creating genetic super soldiers in these bases and have been since 1970s. In that base specifically, they have experimented with multi-appendaged humans that can climb walls. Other kind of human creatures that really don't even make sense. He stated that a lot of what is said to occur in Nightmare Hall is just scratching the surface. At Nightmare Hall, which is in Dulce, a lot of that was primarily for feeding of these creatures that they are creating. They were like creating human cows for milking and such. The multi-appendaged humans have been seen all throughout Canada. There's, a lot of high strangeness and a lot of eyewitness sightings of these. Not a lot, but more than there should be for it not to be true. Gus then wanted to talk a little bit about what else is going on. They had been chipping these creatures. Now they are using like nano chips, smaller than, a microchip when they first started these things. But they are chipping them all of these creations. I had asked him about the crawlers. I said, well, I've always thought that crawlers were a offshoot of alien genetics, quite possibly with human genetics. Because if you really look at a crawler, they resemble human and alien. He said 100% they are lab created and have been for longer than human government on this earth. These things have been around. Native Americans have been making hieroglyphs of these creatures for centuries, thousands of years. If you do a research study on Canadian Aboriginal women and their disappearances, you will see a mass amount of them. You will also, if you look into Canadian Native lore, a lot of them have a Dogman lore. He shared this experience with me that he had taken a first-hand account from an Aboriginal woman just south of Renee Lavaseur, and he believes that the women that disappeared that night were brought to that deep underground military base for one purpose and one purpose alone. So this first-hand account that he took occurred in 1977. 4 Native women were traveling from one village to another. It was wintertime, and they were commuting the only way possible at that time, via snowmobile. There was 2 snowmobiles and 2 women on each. Actually, at one time, one of the women was getting pulled behind in a kind of makeshift sled for her comfort. She was pregnant. That's why they were going from one village to the other. For some reason, she couldn't give birth at the village she was at. Something to do with their native customs or whatnot. And they've got to go something like 20-something miles. Cold night, dark out, snowy. So they are, on their snow sleds going through. Everything's fine. They're at the halfway point, and the head snowmobile slows down a little bit and points. The woman that's in charge of this trip, the elder woman, she points off to the distance, and they see 5 or 6 sets of these orange eyes approaching at a high rate of speed. They could tell they were moving because of the pattern of the eye. It was like kind of up and down. How would they, how an animal would be running. But there was no light for reflective. These were self-illuminated orange, reddish eyes coming at them. She then proceeded to yell, "Don't stop," in their native tongue. "Just go. Let's get to the village." As she's going, they are all keeping an eye out. This is after the fact that the pregnant woman was riding on the back of the sled, but she started to have contractions and cramps, so they did put her in the sled. So now she's being towed behind this back sled. The older elder is on the lead sled. One woman is with her, and another woman on that sled. They get up a ways because they can see that they put a distance between the eyes, and they can't see the eyes anymore. They've got another maybe 5 miles to go. The woman that's on the back with the elder gets on the back of the snowmobile towing the lady. She wanted to be on that part because she is or was a nurse or something like what a midwife would be in their culture. So she wanted to be the closest to the woman just in case they did have to stop. And they proceed to go. They don't see the eyes. They don't see anything. The elder, otherwise they probably wouldn't have stopped. And they get going. The elder looks behind them just to make sure everything's okay. She gets a thumb. And they just go. She doesn't look back anymore because she has no need to. She's looking. She knows that if anything is to happen, they're that close that there's no stopping, Even if this lady's about to give birth, they are going to get to this village. They're not going to stop anymore. She gets into the village. As she pulls into the village and slows down, she doesn't see the other snowmobile. And she immediately is greeted by other members of the village, members of her native tribe, and they ask, where is the woman? Where's the other snowmobile? Where are the other 2 women and the pregnant woman? And she tells them what happened. They go out. Men go out. She stays. She's told to stay. Her job is done. She is an elder of, she doesn't have any, she's looked at with high regard, but she does not have any lawmaking or whatever. So she can't say, I'm going. The men go and they look for the snowmobile. They go out, come back. We couldn't find them. We couldn't find the snowmobile. We will have to wait until at least daybreak. If she gives birth, they do have blankets. They know how to make a fire. They will keep her alive and keep the baby alive. We'll have to wait a couple of hours. This is very upsetting to the woman because she knows about these eyes that she saw. She did tell everybody, but because seldom people had seen anything like it, they didn't really believe it. We're talking 1970s, almost 80s. That kind of lore is looked at. I mean, if it was earlier, maybe, but a few of the elders do believe her. They go out right at daybreak where they can see, right as the sun is starting to come up, and they locate the snowmobile. But they followed her tracks, and they followed her tracks that night too. They could see their tracks, her tracks coming in, their tracks going out, their tracks coming in, and they get to the area where 5 miles out, and they see where they stopped and put the woman on the back and brought her in. So they are like, okay, we went too far. How did we miss it? We have the tracks. And they start to go back, and one of the guys notices off in the distance, he sees kind of a reflection in the sun that is now not high in the sky, but brighter than it was in early morning. We're still, early morning, and they go over to that area. Mind you, there are no snow sled tracks going there. The set goes straight. There's no veer off. There's no anything. And they find the snowmobile and the sled that was towing off, flipped over, broken, a tattered mess. The windshield is cracked, and that's what they caught the glare of. But there's no snowmobile track leading to it. But all around the area where the snowmobile is are these prints, these large dog prints, huge, bigger than any kind of dog could make, bigger than a timber wolf, larger than a bear, just these monstrous paw prints. Now, as he's interviewing her, he says, what are you telling me? Are you telling me that these creatures picked up this snowmobile and carried it? How did it get there? How did it get there and there is no veer off? There is no track going this way. It's just there. The snowmobile is just at this location. She then states this native word, which loosely translates to the light from the sky got them and brought them there. There was bits of blood, not a lot of blood, and no human footprints. Just these large dog prints and this snowmobile with the sled flipped over. What does that tell you? Well, that told him that quite possibly a UFO, or now what we call UAP, assisted these dogmen to get these three women, one being pregnant, which would be like gold to these aliens that are creating these genetic freaks, these genetic monsters, and the dogman assisted the UFO, or however it worked. But interestingly enough, there's these dog prints all around the snowmobile There's no snowmobile track going to that location. And there's no tracks leading in or out of the location either. And when she said they saw the eyes, they were there. And then she looked back again. They were still there. And one last time, and they were gone. But there would be no place for them to go, to hide, to whatever. She would have seen the luminescent light of these eyes. It was so dark that she didn't. So were these creatures transported in a craft? The light in the sky? She does believe that these creatures, these Dogmen, were transported in a UAP and abducted these 3 women, Aboriginal women of northern Canada. And if you really do a deep dive all throughout northern Canada, in Quebec, British Columbia, Manitoba, Aboriginal women disappear at a higher rate than Caucasian and any other race. For the simple fact that the one world government and the alien race knows that, okay, there will be people looking, but is it like we kidnapped somebody from this mall? Or did we abduct Aboriginal people that, aren't going to be missed? That's the way it was looked at back then, and is still today, because these women are still being abducted today and either turned into these creatures or used as genetic markers or feeders or whatever. But it's happening all around this area. Now, he really does believe 100% that the creations, these creatures that are being created on Renee Levasseur Island and at other dumps like Dulce, Teos, and elsewhere, are going to be released on humanity very soon. That it's been in the works for a long time. And he thinks that that's why a lot of these abductions are ramping up. And I said, well, what about these 411s? What about Tom Mezek? Kim Crumbo, the Navy SEAL who disappeared in Yosemite. And all the other 411s. And he said that quite possibly portals open up, one of these alien creatures, like a draconian or a gray, or one of the other creatures, one of your other creations come out and abduct these people and bring them back to a base. He believes 100% that portals are an entrance for the tunnel systems that connect to these bases. And that when a portal opens and someone sees something, it is just emerging from one of these tunnels that connect to these underground military bases or going back down. I thought about that a little bit in regards to Tom Messick. And it would make sense if it wasn't a Dogman that came out. It would make sense more so if it was a humanoid, like a crawler, or one of these multi-limbed creatures that abduct. Because one, they have an intelligence. Two, with that intelligence would know to gather up certain clues that were left behind. And then thinking about that a little bit, think about that surveyor from Georgia. I forget his name. The young African-American kid. God, hang on. I'm going to tell you now because I don't want to not share his name. Sorry. Christopher Tompkins. That would make sense because with Christopher Tompkins, the surveyor, he's walking something like 200 feet or 200 yards. I believe it's 200 yards away from the other surveyor. And if you go back and think about the distance between Tom Messick and his other hunting mates, they were only like 200 yards apart as well. But with Tompkins, nothing was found until later on. They did find like a boot by this barbed wire fence, and some change that had fallen out of his pocket. But they never found any other sign of him until like years later. A year, maybe 2 years later, when they found his other boot. Like miles away. 5 miles away. It would make sense that they are starting to now cover their tracks a little better. You know, leave less clues for us to catch on to. Because with Tom Messick, there was nothing. Not his hat, not his walkie, not his rifle, not a stick of gum. But with Christopher Tompkins, there was something. Talking to Gus, I'm really starting to get a different view on things. Get a different view on some of these attacks that we're talking about. Like Dr. Nancy Shaw, was there a connection? Are these attacks random? No. Are these attacks meant to kill or cause death? Or are they possibly meant to be an abduction gone wrong by using Dogman? Then they figure it out. Okay, we'll send these things. Who knows? But I'm really starting to believe, talking to Gus, that it's all connected more so now than ever. I've always thought that the paranormal and this high strangeness connects with cryptids and everything. But now, when you really think about it and you look at the big picture, it doesn't have to be that big. You can shrink it down and really see what's going on. I might be wrong. That's my theory. That's my theory. I wasn't even going to talk about Christopher Tompkins. I just remembered his disappearance and how strange it was that they did find a boot and some pocket change. But not a sound. He didn't scream. He didn't make a noise. So, I don't know. Anyway, Gus, if you are listening to this, thank you. My phone, my burner is off. But when you email me again, it will be on. And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant. keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.